you're married and you have kids.
Yes.
How many kids do you guys have?
I have one.
Okay. So what is healthier? Being married with kids, married no kids, or staying single?
I would say
Is there any ties to health?
absolutely being married with kids. I think that's unanimously clear.
Why is that?
Because happiness is really linked to longevity and health. And happiness, very, very big component, as Dr. Arthur Brooks, who does research out of Harvard, I recently had on my podcast.
Arthur C. Brooks?
He's amazing.
He's phenomenal.
He's amazing.
He's phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean,
glasses. He wears glasses.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah.
But he's done research. He's written 2 New York Times best-selling books, and he's got a 3rd one on the way coming in March. He's amazing. What he calls the macronutrients of happiness, one of that is enjoyment, right? And enjoyment is something that you get by experiencing something with another person. It's not something that you're doing alone. It's experiences with people that you love, right? And if you're not married and you have no kids, I mean, you really have to really put in a lot of effort to try to have that enjoyment, right? Married with kids, you've got your spouse, you've got your kids. I mean, anyone that's a parent knows the love you feel for them is unmeasurable. I mean, it's just, and the joy you get from being their parents, sure, there's like hard times, but the joy is also, I mean, you can't describe it. You can't measure it. It's amazing. And there's also studies showing that, right? That, married couples and having children is associated with a longer life. Like having that family tie, having those relationships are so important. Now, I'm not saying all those single people out there. I know it's like a thing now. There's like younger people that are like, oh, I'm never going to get married. I'm not going to have
no kids. I'm going to live for me. I don't want to ruin my body. And, I don't want to lose my time, my freedom, and all this stuff. You hear a lot of that. And by the way, U.S. is at the lowest birth rate in the history of America. I think we're at 1.58 right now. And you know this, the replacement rate needs to be at 2.1. We're at 1.58. So it is a trend that people go in that direction.
It is. And, I waited till later in life to have my son, and that's, because I was pursuing academic, pursuits in my academic career. And it is something that, I mean, I don't regret. I have like an amazing son. I love him more than life itself. And it gives me a sense of purpose, right? But I will say I wish I had started earlier and had more children. And all I can say to people out there that are in that mentality is that as you get older, things change, and it's harder to have relationships if you don't establish them early. And a spouse and the love that you have for your spouse is so incredible. And then when you bring a child into this world, sure, there's layers of complexity. Sure, there's going to be times that are more challenging, and it takes work. Every relationship takes work, but it's really, these relationships are really important for mental health, long-term health, disease risk. I mean, there's all this, the Harvard, longitudinal aging studies showed that, these individuals with relationships, spouses, children, family, friends, like those individuals not only were happier, they lived longer. It's very important. Loneliness is a thing, as you get older. I mean, if you're someone that's single, never married, don't know kids, and then you retire and you haven't really put a lot of effort into maintaining friendships, it becomes harder and harder, and you really do have to put effort in. Loneliness is independently associated with early mortality, and it's just not fun. And people that are lonely then oftentimes will seek out that kind of pleasure and reward by themselves, and they'll turn to like alcohol, or they'll turn to gambling or things like that, where it's like the short-term, pleasure you get, but it's really not. It's trying to fill the void of that enjoyment that you get from the relationships that are meaningful in your life.
I saw a clip the other day. Rob, can you ask Alicia and Humberto about the clip of 2 women were debating? I said, where's this interview from? If they can find that clip and send it to you. One lady is like, who wants to have a kid and be an underpaid Uber driver for your son that wants to go to taekwondo, a sport that he hates? And the other lady just flat out, I mean, if you got this clip, I'll give you a second for you to find it. It's a fascinating clip. But it is becoming common of people not wanting to have kids, not wanting to have families. Did you find it?
Is becoming an unpaid Uber driver for someone who doesn't want to go to karate and hates you anyway. And it's hard work.
That is a narrative that I'm going to push back on, which is part of the problem, which is that it's the narrative of misery, which has been promoted. And It's not miserable to have children. It's joyful. It's the most incredible love you'll ever experience in your life, but it's also really hard. And I think we have a bunch of pussies, actually. We are producing women and men who are pussies, and I'll tell you what I mean by that. They cannot deal with discomfort. They cannot deal with frustration. They cannot deal with sacrifice or hardship or responsibility. They want it to be easy. Who said raising children was easy? You don't get the good stuff unless you put in the work. And it's the same if you're out in the world. Of course it's easier to go to a job than it is to stay home with a child, because a child demands more of you, but it also gives back more.
What do you think about what you said?
Well, I definitely agree with the second woman
Okay.
in terms of it being incredibly rewarding, but also challenging. But I think it comes down to, not everyone has that negative outlook on the world, the pessimistic look. It's hard.
Yep.
I'm taking my child to jiu-jitsu and they hate it. I mean, you can focus on negative things in life and not have a child. Like that same person with that sort of mentality, guess what? Take the child out of the equation, take the spouse out of the equation. They're going to focus on the negative things in their life as a single individual.
What a great point.
Right?
What a great point. So it doesn't matter. That's how they are, period.
It doesn't. It's the way it's their personality type, right? And if you're that person that's focusing on negative all the time, you're going to be miserable. You're going to be unhappy, and you have to find a way to change your thinking. I do think, again, exercise is part of that because it does help you do that hard thing, and everything else becomes easier. But also there's other things like being grateful. Like think about what you're grateful for in life, right? Like what do you have that, you can be thankful for? Because everyone has something. Even if you're the Uber driver that doesn't get paid a lot, you have your health. Until your health goes bad, until you get a cancer diagnosis at the age of 40, until you have, a heart attack at 55, until you get type 2 diabetes at the age of, I don't know, perhaps 39, you don't realize how important your health is, or your parents come down with the cancer diagnosis, or your sibling, let's say you don't have kids. You have something to be thankful for. And when you start to focus, have a daily practice of that, what to be thankful for, it does help train your brain. And there's studies showing that helps train your brain to not be so pessimistic. And so that's one thing to do in addition to the exercise. It's like the best thing that you can do, I think, is really daily exercise, physical activity, because it is hard. It is something that trains your brain to do hard things, and other things become easier. But also there's a lot of endorphins that are released that make you feel better. And there's also some evidence that like doing that hard thing when you're uncomfortable, when you're exercising hard or working out hard, or even doing a sauna, when you're sitting in the sauna and it's hot and you're uncomfortable, because sauna does mimic moderate intensity exercise. Those things are that uncomfortableness is your brain's endogenous opioid system that is being activated, and you're making something called dynorphin. This is the opposite of endorphin. Endorphin's the feel-good opioid. Dynorphin is the thing that's uncomfortable, where you're like, oh, this sucks. I hate it, right? There's a neuropeptide being made called dynorphin. And guess what? When you make that dynorphin, there's an adaptation that happens. That adaptation is your brain going...
Commonly known as heroin?
Not dimorphine, dynorphin.
Rob, what are you doing? You're confusing the audience.
Dynorphin.
There it is.
Dynorphin. So...
You're about to confuse people, Rob.
Yes. So what happens is it's binding to a kappa opioid. And when that happens, it's basically telling the brain, oh, I'm uncomfortable, whether that's from exercise or deliberate heat exposure from a sauna or a hot tub. That uncomfortable feeling... But
it's good for you.
...is good for you. You have to experience that uncomfortableness, because what happens is then the brain adapts, and the receptors that bind to endorphins, the feel-good opioids... They're called mu-opioid receptors. They become more sensitive to the endorphin. So after that uncomfortableness of exercise or deliberate heat exposure, every endorphin that you make is going to feel better. Whether that's, a kiss or a hug from a loved one, or a joke that you're laughing at, whatever it is that's causing you to feel good for the moment, that endorphin, you're going to feel it more, and you're going to feel it for longer. So there are things that you can do, and exercise being really a key, but also deliberate, heat exposure from like hot tubs or saunas is another one that really can help with your state of mind, your mentality, your mood. In fact, there's actually studies by Dr. Charles Raison, Dr. Ashley Mason, some pioneering studies showing that if you do deliberate heat exposure, and this was a very tricky machine that they used, which was essentially raising people's core body temperature to a feverish state, where it's essentially like, going in the sauna. They're raising people's core body temperature 1.5 to 2 degrees, or they're doing a sham control. So they're getting people hot enough to think it's a placebo, like a treatment, right? But it's a real placebo. And they took these people with major depressive disorder, gave them this treatment one time. This was the pioneering study, one time. And they had an antidepressant effect that lasted 6 to 8 weeks after that, just from one sauna exposure.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Dr. Ashley Mason, she's at UCSF. She's now done follow-up studies using infrared saunas that are sort of like these heat beds where people are laying in them. Their head is out, but she's also raising their core body temperature to 1.5 to 2 degrees. And they're doing it multiple times, 4 to 8 times.
These guys?
That's right. And she's also shown that it really, in combination with cognitive behavioral therapy, dramatically improves a battery of tests for major depressive disorder. I mean, these people, like, just to give you a sense of how potent this effect was, there's a Hamilton scale that, like, this battery of tests that's done to measure, to basically assess people's mood, their depressive symptoms. If you have like a 3-point change that's considered clinically relevant, these people were having a 16-point change after doing cognitive behavioral therapy, which is talk therapy, with the heat bed, so with the sauna exposure. All this is to say, to get back to the clip of the mom saying, why do I want to be a mom when it's like so hard? Basically, you're dealing with these hard moments. Is that, you know what? Life is full of hard moments. Whether or not you have children, it's going to be full of different kinds of hard moments, right? And so the reality is you're missing out on that joy and the relationship that who's going to take care of you when you're older too, right? I mean, there's all sorts of reasons to have a family. I promise you.
If I had my way, I'd have 20 kids. I'll never forget. We had a private equity guy in Santa Monica. His name was John Morris. And we were part of this Vistage group. And once a month, you would meet with them. And I said, John, how many kids do you have? He says, 2. I said, why 2? You're a smart guy. Why do you have 2 kids? He says, biggest mistake of my life. I said, mistake of your life? Why? He says, tell me what we do in life that the moment we get good at it, we stop doing it. He says, I barely learned how to parent after 2. I wish we would add 4. So really? Yeah. My wife and I, when we first started dating, I had her read a book called 101 Questions to Ask Before You Get Engaged. And in the book, one of the questions is, how many kids do you want to have? I wanted to have 5. She wanted 3. We ended up with 4. Okay, so we got 4 kids now, 2 boys, 2 girls. Life-changing. I would do 20 if I could, like I said earlier.
Patrick, it's my biggest regret in life is not having at least another child, and I try not to focus on that regret because that's the wrong mindset, right? You don't want to be focusing on the negative because it's the same thing.
Is it too late?
I mean,
it's not too late.
It's not too late, and I may be trying to explore opportunities, but that's sort of a personal, I get it. Question. But what I will say is that for people out there that are younger and they have that mentality where they're like, I don't want kids, I don't feel like I want to be a mom or a dad. Mostly moms because they're the ones that expire earlier in terms of being able to have kids later in life. I mean, there's options out there now like freezing down your eggs. Very important. I think that's like. If you're one of those women right now that are like, I'm never going to want to have kids, I would say to you, like, you may change your mind in 10 years. And it will be very heartbreaking if you don't take steps right now to make sure that you can have children later in life, because you might not be able to. So, but there's always adoption and stuff. And that's, of course, another option as well. But being pregnant and experiencing the whole process, it's amazing. It's just, I loved being pregnant. I loved it.
Love being pregnant.
I do. Oh, yeah. I mean, you get...
I hear that sometimes. I'm like, tell me why.
Well, sure, there's like hard times. I mean, like you gain 50 pounds and,
right.
You can't sleep well sometimes. And there's all sorts of like you're feeling aches and pains because all the relaxants that your body's making to help prepare for childbirth. But you're also like the oxytocin and the bonding and knowing that you are preparing, everything that you're doing, what you're eating, and you're preparing this child and you're trying to give this child the best, opportunity that you can to set them up right? Like it's all like, I guess, a matter of like how your outlook, right? It's better to try to focus on positive. And that's all.
Listen, my respect for my wife went, of course, I love my wife, but when you watch her have the baby, and you're sitting here like once, twice. You know, this is incredible what the women's body does. You know, God's creation to be able to do that and go through the pain, and it's amazing. It's amazing. But I appreciate you for being vulnerable here and talking about wanting to have more kids. When we set out to create a shoe that blends comfort, function, and luxury, we had the choice to make it fast. We had the choice to make it cheap. We chose neither. Instead, we chose Tuscany, Italy. We chose true Italian craftsmanship, each pair touched by 50 skilled hands. We chose patience, spending 2 years perfecting every detail, and we chose the finest quality at every step. Introducing the Future Looks Bright collection. Not rushed, not disposable, not ordinary. Rather, intentional, luxurious, timeless. If you enjoyed this video, you want to watch more videos like this, click here. And if you want to watch the entire podcast, click here.